Hi, I'm Grasie Mercedes, and welcome back to Not Blank Enough, a podcast about everyday insecurities and triumphs. Today's episode is with writer, musician, and performer Lamar Woods. We spoke about growing up a Jehovah's Witness, dating, and being sensitive in the hip-hop rap scene. All this and more in today's episode titled, Not Hard Enough. Hello, Lamar, and welcome to Not Blank Enough.
Hey, Gracie, how you doing? I'm so happy
Good,
to
how are
be
you?
here. I just got off a hike, and it was a great hike, but I had to run back down because I got a podcast to get to.
Well, thank you for being here. We can talk first about how we know each other. Lamar, you're a writer and producer on Grand Crew.
Grand Crew. Shout out to season 2. Just got renewed. What up?
And so this is kind of like an unofficial mini Grand Crew season of Not Blank Enough. Everyone I've interviewed is on the show in some way, shape, or form,
Cool.
whether it be a writer, a director, an actor. I want to get to know you better, Lamar. Tell me about yourself. Where did you grow up, and tell me a little about your childhood.
Man, I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up super religious. My dad was like a real high up person in this church, in what we call the Kingdom Hall, because I grew up Jehovah's Witness, which is a very specific religion if you know about it. You've seen it in movies where they knock on the door in the opening scene. They're in the opening scene of Friday. I just realized that because I watched Friday the other day, and the first scene is like these two Jehovah's Witness ladies knocking on the door. And I was like, hey, we got some representation popping. I'm from Atlanta. Yeah, I'm from the South, and I moved out here probably in 2009. And been here. So I've been here for almost 12 years. I've been here a long time. Oh, wow. I love LA. I love Atlanta. And I was a musician for a long time in high school. I was a rapper. I used to like battle kids in school and stuff. And and then I went to college and I studied religion, and I got to I don't know how much you want me to tell you about but I'll just give you my whole biography.
Yeah, no, I like that you jumped ahead, but wait, before you get into college stuff, because this is all fascinating, because I grew up Catholic, 12 years of Catholic school. You know, my family wasn't necessarily super religious. I mean, my grandmother was very into Jesus, as most Latin grandmothers are.
Yeah.
Had like a whole little shrine to Jesus, rosary beads and all the things.
Right.
But we did have multiple times Jehovah's Witnesses in New York. I grew up in New York, knocking on our doors.
Right.
And then I think all I really knew of Jehovah's Witnesses, I knew that the Jacksons were Jehovah's Witnesses at some point, right?
Oh, yeah.
And that they didn't celebrate holidays and things like that. And like a scene in like that Jackson.
That's that one that starts from like when they're kids, and then the last scene is like, we thank you. And they all say thank you to their parents at the end. That's a great biopic, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great biopic, and there's a scene where they don't know the national anthem, right? Because of Jehovah's Witness. So tell me about that, like growing up as a kid, as a Jehovah's Witness, and what that was like.
You know what? Here's what I say. I was born into it, so I knew nothing else other than that world. And the things that I knew is that I can't celebrate Christmas, Halloween, my birthday, Valentine's Day, any of the holidays. So that was hard for me as a kid. I think that religion is very hard for children because, these are things you want to do. Like, let's keep it real. Like, you want to go trick-or-treating. Like, I always wanted to go trick-or-treating as a kid. So I found that very hard. The national anthem thing is true too, but I always loved seeing that scene in Michael Jackson. It always would be exciting. We had like Jehovah's, if there was group chats back then, it'd be like a Jehovah's Witness group chat where we would just tell each other when we see Jehovah's Witness stuff in movies, because you would see it in movies and you'd be like, hey, that's our religion. But it was very strict, no drinking, no dating, no dancing, none of that stuff. My parents were cool though, like because in retrospect, compared to most families in the community. But one of the things that was the hardest, I think, was just like building friendships with people outside the religion. So I had you start living what they call like a double life. Like you got your friends who are in the religion, and then you got your friends who are not, who are like, I even remember like sneaking out to literally go trick-or-treating with my friends in my neighborhood.
Wow.
It was the most fun I ever had.
Aww, how old were you when you did
I was like probably 14. Yeah, 14.
Wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And it's like, at the time I was telling my parents, I'm just going to spend the night at my friend's house. But I feel like they're not stupid. They had to know that I went trick-or-treating. Like, it's like on Halloween. It's like, I promise I probably won't dress up. I won't do any candy-related events. No trick, no treats. Just nice, good old fashioned fun. And then we're just, wilding in the neighborhood. Like real fun, real bad shit too, because we were like teenagers, like that highlight, that real fun times of Halloween. But
and like real quick, what is why can't you celebrate these holidays? What is the religious reasoning?
I would say, it's not too, they're not too incorrect about it. But I would say it's like, basically the idea is in the early century when Christianity was becoming very popular, mainstream Christianity, they were adopting sort of pagan traditions to sort of like convert people in pagan religions into Christianity. So things like the bunny and eggs and stuff with Easter, that doesn't have anything to really do with the resurrection of Christ or whatever. But
right.
I think Jehovah's Witnesses was like an attempt to like purify, in their words, like sort of like get rid of all of that pagan fluff and get back to the original Christian, vibes, which is just like the only holiday they kind of celebrate is around Easter. It's like that Last Supper kind of thing.
Right. Okay. So, but they're still not celebrating Easter or Christmas in the more quote unquote pure sense of it either, right?
No, like they even for Christmas, it's like they don't even think that that's the day that Jesus is born. Like I would say that religion is very academic in this sense. Like it's very like studying and a lot of like they're real specific about stuff, But I'm not here to defend it. I'm not part of the religion anymore, so I don't want to be like speaking on behalf of the religion. But that's the idea that I was taught, Like I said, I didn't really question it because I was a child.
You were a kid.
Yeah.
You're a kid, you're born into it. You're like, this is what I have to do.
Yeah.
Did you have other friends, though, in school who were Jehovah's Witness or no?
Not really. Not in my school. They were.
So you really did live like a double life.
Yeah. I was out here in these streets. I was drinking and smoking, and then I go back to the church or whatever. I keep calling it church, but we call it Kingdom Hall. But I just say church for just to make it easier. Then I would go back and, go knocking on doors, preach a good word, and then hang out in the streets and stuff.
You knocked on doors too?
Oh, yeah. As a kid, I was doing that when I was like 10 years old, knocking on doors. And, it was like, oh, he's so cute. And I have like the Bible. And it's like, ma'am, do you have time to hear the word?
God.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Were people ever mean to you and just like close the door in your face?
All the time. Yeah. They hated it.
To a cute 10-year-old?
Worst time to go to someone's house unannounced is on a Saturday afternoon, like or Saturday. It's just like what are you doing at my house?
Right.
Crazy, yeah.
God, that must have been a lot. So you're living this like kind of double life as a kid, but then you on the weekends have to go door to door and do this stuff. Like, was there ever a blank then that kind of stuck out for you?
At that point, I would say my blank would have been probably not fun enough. Like when I would hang with I would call them worldly friends, but who are just regular ass people. But my friends who would just have whatever faith they follow, I found myself being too good of a kid sometimes, like a little scared to drink, a little scared to do certain things that we would get. I just didn't want to get in trouble a lot, not even necessarily in terms of context of the religion, but just I think I was so sheltered that I was like I didn't even seeing rated R movies felt like bad to me, Yeah. So I to this day I can't watch scary movies. We weren't allowed to watch scary movies because they, and I actually now as an adult, like as a filmmaker, I'm like, man, I wish I could understand scary movies because they seem like there's a lot of art to it. But I just can't watch it. It's terrifying.
I mean, I hate scary movies too. So
So
I never watch scary movies.
Do you ever hear someone who like loves scary movies the way they talk about it? They talk about it in such passion that I'm jealous of it sometimes. Where I'm like, man, they really into it.
I don't really understand the appeal to being scared all the time. Like I don't like that feeling of like I'm gonna jump out of my seat at any moment.
Have you ever done it like gone on a date or something, and you're like, and you're with sharing that experience with somebody, and you're like, oh my God.
I mean, I've done that in movies that are not that scary because I am very jumpy. I think.
Yeah. So I jump in like fucking Free Willy when the whale like it hit the window and the kids were like, ah. That's that's a very dated reference. Sorry. I don't know what the audience is.
I get it though. Okay, so not fun enough. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you're just like, scared to break the rules, which being Catholic, I still have so much Catholic guilt about things. And I don't really consider myself a Catholic anymore. But I think when any religion is instilled in you at a certain age, especially at that age when you're developing, that shit sticks with you. I feel like all that stuff sticks with you no matter what.
Yeah, it's like because you're a child. I was like, I'm in therapy now, and it's like I'm realizing a lot of my issues come from that upbringing. Like, I don't want to sit here and blame the religion because it's a good religion. Like, what I typically say is like, whatever works for you works, But I think that religion created a sort of like, for me as a child, created like a high level of guilt. So like when I'm like, it's very similar, I think very relatable to what you're saying, you're growing up in the Catholic church too, which is like just the guiltiness. Like every time I do anything that feels fun or even moving to Hollywood, even being successful, any of these things I feel guilty about. And it's like, I'm trying to unlearn that, but I feel guilty about pretty much every single thing that happens to me.
Yeah, no, I'm in therapy too. Shout out to therapy.
Yeah,
Love
let
my
them know.
therapist.
Let's go.
So much of a lot of things that I deal with have to do with that guilt that is ingrained in me. But I'm also very grateful for that upbringing because I do feel like, I don't know if this is true or not, but I feel like, that Catholic upbringing, this Catholic guilt is what makes me a quote unquote good person. It's like,
Yeah.
like not
That's just the guilt. That's how they manipulated you.
Yeah, they're like, they screwed me. They
Yeah.
screwed me. But I'm just like, I can never like be mean to someone. Like if I'm mean to someone, I like immediately apologize. Or if I'm like, like I'm constantly being like, is this thing I'm doing like a good thing?
Yeah.
Or am I being mean? Am I being a bad person?
Yeah.
Am I being, It took me 3 years to have the courage to tell my husband I wanted a divorce because I felt like a bad person and a bad wife and a bad, it's like, that's all religion. That's all guilt.
Yeah. And it's like, I was thinking about it, I was telling a friend today, like when you're learning how to stand up for yourself or like advocate for yourself, situations like that, it's actually it's so uncomfortable because you're the child version of you. So you're like, you're trying to become a new person, but the child version of you is literally looking at you like, what are you doing? Like, we don't do this. Like, stop standing up for yourself. And I think it's like, it almost takes like practice because every time I stand up for myself, even when it feels good in the moment, like I'm not sure how it felt, when you finally did it. Yeah. But even after it comes back where you're like, you have to sort of like reconcile with yourself again. Like, damn.
Oh yeah.
Should I apologize? Should I go back? Should I go back to my husband?
I feel guilty all the time still. I'm just like, I'm like, and we're friends still, luckily. And so, I see him and stuff. And sometimes I see him, I'm like, I feel bad. Like, meanwhile, like he's accepted it and great. And like, I think he realizes it was for the better too,
How long were you married again?
We were married about 8 years, but we were together for almost 14 years.
Wow.
So it was a long,
it's a long time though. So it's like, it's not even, that's not an easy thing to do, even whatever guilt you feel,
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
That's how long my parents were together before they got divorced. It's crazy.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 14
So
years.
your parents are divorced now?
Yeah.
And do you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 little sisters, yeah.
So now you go into high school.
Yeah, I'm high school. So now I'm like, the divorce comes. That's happened in high school. That happened when I was in a sophomore. That was a big deal because like my dad was so high up. He's called an elder. That's what we call like kind of leaders over there. Divorce is not a no. So
yeah. Well, I mean, every religion is kind of a no, right?
It's kind of weird. Like, I guess because you get married under God. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah. Maybe we should stop telling God, promising we're going to stay together to God, and then divorce will be fine. He left the house, so he's not in the house anymore. So it's me and my 2 sisters and my mom. So now it's like I'm becoming the man of the house. I guess figuratively speaking. I was heavily in the religion at that point. Like, I was very committed. Like, and I was like, kind of like keeping the family going because my mom wasn't that into it as much. And but my dad, I kind of like wanted to fill his shoes, I guess, as the elder. But he was like, he basically had to walk away from it because
of the divorce.
Yeah, because they, because he was in such a high position, he basically stepped away from that position because he couldn't be going through a divorce and be also telling other people how to live their lives in the church. That became hard for me because we started going, I think the community was trying really hard to keep us from falling apart, in terms of the religion, not our family,
right.
Knowing that this person was the main one keeping us going to the every week and stuff. But eventually it just fell off. Like, my mom's like, I'm not going to this shit. And then my sisters were like, I don't want to go. And then it was just me going. by myself.
Oh, wow.
And then I was like, man, this is whack. I don't want to go to this shit no more. But I still believed in it. I just was like, I had all my friends weren't Jehovah's Witnesses either. So I'm like, I'm just like, man, I'm about to kick it, And I'm like getting into music. I'm getting into rap music heavy. Like, Wu-Tang Clan was one of my favorite groups. And I really got really into hip hop, like a hip hop head, I would say. And started rapping. And, there's nothing really, they're not into that stuff either. That became the dominant narrative for me in high school was music. And then I stopped going. I still believed in it, but I just wasn't like active anymore,
Yeah. So you pulled away and music became your new religion.
Yeah. Bars. My new religion was bars and raps and streets. Yeah, I don't know.
I love it. And then what was high school like actual school for you? As far as like friends, dating?
It was fun. I got along with everybody. I smoked a lot of weed. I think I was a very big weed head. I didn't date that much. I was not really good at that. I think also like maybe the residual Jehovah's Witness thing was like make me feel probably create a lot of guilt in terms of even asking girls out and stuff.
Oh, wow. So in high school, getting into rap music and stuff, what was that like for you? And was there ever a blank that you felt towards that?
Oh yeah, that I would say I felt, man, these blanks. It's so funny because I came in with my blanks and they're not lining up to my life story.
You know what? This is what people do. This is why I tell people not to, because I feel like sometimes people try to come in with like, I know what this is going to be. I've literally had people email me like, I want the show to be this. I'm like, okay. Well, we're just going to talk about your life and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah, because I could tell you later what I thought. Let's see if they line up, if they eventually come up, because I'm going to try to be as sincere as I can with each blank.
I love it.
Because the blank I came in with doesn't match what I'm about to tell you. I think with rap music, I just felt not, I guess, street enough, or hard enough. I would say hard, tough.
Yeah, not hard enough.
I was a pretty soft kid. I'm pretty sensitive, and even when I would do battles, like I would my feelings would get hurt.
Oh my God.
It'd be awful. Like, I feel like I didn't realize at the time was probably where my comedy was coming from, but like I remember doing this battle with this dude. His name was Trem. He was from College Park, the South Side dude. Real, tattoos all over, like real gold teeth, just looked like a real rapper, And then I'm like, got a polo shirt on, like, hey, what's up? And he also like dated my sister too, so I feel like he had something over me.
Oh wow.
Everybody was there and we're like battling, and I was like, I was representing for the North Side, and it wasn't like I wasn't good. I'm just not like a tough guy. So like a lot of my raps are more like conscious or like more like about lyrical stuff. He was just killing me, destroying me on stage, but I kept making these jokes. I kept kind of making fun of him, but like, and it was, the whole theater was cracking up, but it was like, it wasn't the way that it should have been. And, through hip hop, it was more me just making commentary about the actual situation that's happening.
You turned like a rap battle into like a roast.
Yeah, exactly. Like he would go really hard on me, and then I would be like, man, he's being really mean to me right now. And then like the audience would like laugh, even though I'm like clearly losing this battle, which is like, awful. Yeah. So I always felt that. I felt like, I had a lot of friends who were, in the streets and stuff. And, I felt like, connected to it, but I didn't feel like that was something I wanted to rap about or be a part of. But at the same time, it was like, you got to remember too, this is a long time ago. I'm an old ass man. So this is like when rap music was very gangster at the time, especially like, it wasn't like, there was no weirdo rappers or like alternative rappers and stuff. Yeah. Like it was like,
is this like the early 2000s?
Yeah. Like, like Jeezy and like Thug Motivation came, like that kind of, Dipset was heavy around that time. Like I feel like it was like very much like street, like drug dealer rap. Like everybody was rapping about selling drugs.
Right. It wasn't like Childish Gambino talking about.
Yeah. It was like, I know I love Gambino. I wish I had him at the time.
I mean, I love him too.
So I was I always wanted to be more hood and more tough. So I didn't feel hood enough, tough enough, hard enough. I guess. That being said, I was took it serious. I was a good rapper,
Yeah. And then what happened after that? Did you go to college?
Yeah. So I went to college and I went to community college. I don't know why that made me laugh. There's nothing wrong with community college. I don't know. There's something funny about the word community college. Like, it's like, why does it sound lamer like than a university? Because it's like a university sounds like big and boisterous, where like community is like, I went to community college. Okay. Anyway, shout out to community college. It's a beautiful place.
In Atlanta? Were you still in
Yeah,
Atlanta?
yeah. It was called Georgia Perimeter. And then I transferred to Georgia State because I got some good grades, and I went to Georgia State. And that's when I started studying religion, actually, because I was doing like marketing, business marketing. And
you left this religion to then go to college to study religion. And how fascinating
and
that
then
is.
well, you know what happened was I was taking marketing because that's what every like person does when they don't know what to do. And I'm like, okay, I'm studying business marketing, but like I don't care about it at all. And then when I got accepted at Georgia State, I was like, ooh, maybe I could change my major. So I just kind of went through each program on the website, and I was like, at first thinking sociology, and I was like, that sounds cool, because I was looking at the classes, and then religious studies was there, and I was like, man, all these classes look dope. Like it was like women and Islam, or like the Bible, and I was always interested in the stories of religion and stuff.
The historic of
the history of it. So I was like, this seems cool. Or philosophy I was thinking too, but I ended up doing religious studies. But thinking that I would be like, they would be like all Christian based, like thinking I was going to like, learn more about my own religion and stuff like that. Of course, this is a state school, so the whole thing is academic. So you're like, it's secular, so, they're not teaching you what I was taught. They're teaching you what actually happened, So it's I was like, I immediately lost my faith, like immediately. So I was like it took like maybe 2 semesters, and I was like completely like lost faith in all religion, because it was like, you learn all this stuff, and then you're like, oh, this is all bullshit.
Yeah, it's like the irony of studying religion and then making you less religious.
Well, that's where you would notice all my teachers were either atheists, or what I ended up becoming, after going through the rest of the program, but atheists or universalists, which is like they sort of believe in the truth in all religions, which is where I'm at right now. But I ended up getting really into Islam, and but by the time I graduated, I was fully practicing Zen Buddhism, and I've been practicing Zen Buddhism for like 15 years now. So that's my religion now. I don't really like to say that's my religion, like, because I still believe in God and Jesus and everything, but I believe in kind of all the things. But if you want to know what I practice, that's what I practice,
What is that in a nutshell?
In terms of Buddhism is one type of religion, but Zen specifically is like the focus on meditation. Like meditation specifically is the main purpose of it, and to reach, enlightenment at a certain point, which I'm not going to say I'm enlightened yet, but yeah, I'm not. It's not like I'm doing it the right way. Like the right way is to go out to a monastery and like learn with a master and all that stuff. But I do go to this place where I meditate and stuff, and we talk about like sort of like the different schools of thought in terms of like the nature of the universe.
How often do you meditate? Every
day, like probably 15 minutes every morning, probably. I've been trying, I fell off, recently, but just because I've been busy and stuff. But I used to do it all the time, And then when I would go to the place, we do it like an hour-long meditation. Yeah.
Oh, damn. Yeah. That's long. I got into like transcendental meditation. I did the whole thing a few years ago.
Yeah.
This feels very LA of me to say, but
it's not though. It's a beautiful thing. I love it.
But it is a beautiful thing, but I feel like people are going to listen and be like, oh, this is so LA.
I don't know. Well, if it makes you feel better, like.
But that's the thing. I'm like, I love it. And when I was doing it, like all things, at least for me, like I was super into it for like a year and a half, and like meditating 20 minutes twice a day. And it felt great. And now I meditate every night before bed. And then if I can, or if I remember, or if I have the time, then I'll try to do one during the day as well.
Right.
But it is really crazy how great it is, and how like rejuvenating it feels.
Yeah.
Like there's so many times where I'm like, oh, I'm kind of tired. And instead of like taking a nap or drinking a coffee, like let me just meditate for 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then usually I fall asleep. And
I know.
I'm like, well, I feel great.
It'd be funny when you like meditated, but then you like wake up and you're like, oh, I would sleep for 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Like I thought I was meditating, but I fell asleep. Okay. So college, religion, takes you kind of out of it. It's funny because I remember, I'll never forget, I had a teacher in high school. I want to say his name was Mr. Glenn, but I don't really remember.
It's got to be Mr. Glenn.
Right? Mr. Glenn. Got to be that. He was my religion teacher at a Catholic school.
Oh, dope.
And I remember he was the first one to ever say to us, like, about the Bible, like, hey, these are just stories.
Right.
And you take these lessons from them.
Yeah.
You take whatever whatever resonates with you.
Right,
That's what you
right.
can take away from it. And it was the first time in 12 years of, a Catholic school education, because I think he was my teacher in either my junior or senior year, that someone had said that.
Right,
and I was
right.
like, it was a little scandalous. I was like, does the principal
He's like
know
he's like the cool hip teacher. Yeah, he's like, let me tell you, I'm gonna tell y'all a little secret. Yeah,
like, this is all bullshit.
Yeah. He's like,
but it was cool because I don't know. Then I was like, oh yeah, these are like cool stories. Some of them that teach cool lessons. I mean, not all of them. Some of them are pretty horrible, but some of them are like, oh yeah, this makes sense, and this can be a good little thing to take to heart.
Well, yeah, it actually makes you appreciate the Bible more, because it's like, especially as a writer, I started to look at it more like a work of art. One of the things that I learned in school that was fascinating to me that I just never thought about was like most of the Gospels are written in Greek, right? And it's like, in order to be able to write Greek, you have to be able to read Greek, and like, if you read Greek at that time, you were reading Greek mythology, like you were reading like the Odyssey and stuff like that. And if you go back and read the Gospels with that in mind, you're like, you see the resemblance of like some Greek literature, and you're like, oh yeah, like that makes sense. Like if I wrote the Bible right now, you would see the influence of Tupac in it.
I love that. So now you graduate college. How do you get into comedy and comedy writing? And I know you still do music, so how does that all meld together?
So yeah, my best friend, shout out to Weldon. He was always a filmmaker. He wanted to be a filmmaker. He was always working on that when growing up, and he had just graduated from his school in New York, a film school. And he was like, yo, I'm about to go to LA if you want to come with me, right? And I was like, I had just graduated too. And at that point, I was doing music still, but I had learned to play guitar at that point. So I had kind of moved away from traditional hip hop at that point. So I was doing like more folky, like indie kind of rock music. And Atlanta was turning into like the hip hop capital of the world at that point. So it was like, I feel like my music journey was like bad timing, because like I feel like the music I was doing is perfect for right now. But but back then it was like all trap music. Like it was like, Gucci, like that. Snap music was big back then. I even did a little bit of it because I was trying to fit in, remember the Franchise Boys and D4L and stuff like that. I was like, I was doing all the snaps and dancing and shit. It was great. It was fun, but I was like, this is not what I want. So I figured California is all hip and cool and liberal or whatever. I'll just try with my music out there. So I moved out west with him. And then when I got out here, I did do music for like the first year. I had like a folk band with this married couple, but they kept fighting all the time. It was like this married couple that I found on Craigslist, and they would like fight all the time at practice. And it was just so awkward. Like the wife would play the drums and the husband was a bass player. And I would be like, I was the lead on guitar. And it's actually, I kind of missed them. I wonder whatever happened to them.
Did you ever I feel like that's a movie. You need to write a movie about this.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's pretty funny. I mean, that's such a funny premise. Like, to be in a band with a married couple that's constantly fighting.
And it's like and they just become like their surrogate, like child, Meanwhile, my best friend, it was like trying to shoot stuff, but he didn't know any actors, so he would put me in the videos, and I would do the videos, and then we do like these sketches. And this is before TikTok and all that. We put them online, and they went viral. We started this site called Northside Comedy, which was like, we had like a full fan base and everything. And it was kind of weird because I was like, I realized I hadn't done music at all in like a couple years. And I was like, I'm just really a comedian now. So then I was like, well, let me learn how to do it for real. And that's when I found UCB and started going to did classes there. And then I met Phil. That's where I met Phil, Augusta Jackson, creator of Grand Crew, one of my ace homies for life. Carl Tart, who's also on Grand Crew, and Echo Kellum, who's also on Grand Crew, and Nicole Meyer, who's also on Grand Crew. And that's where I met all of them, and we all became friends and close. And we were like sort of the only, back then there wasn't a lot of black people at UCB Theater, so we all kind of knew each other. And from then on, it just kind of took off. And then I only recently started doing music, like over the pandemic. This is like very new for me, so I'm like really insecure about it. But
let's talk about that.
Yeah.
So you're insecure about it, but you were doing it when you were young. Why are you insecure about it? Were you insecure about it then as well?
No, not when I was young. I was insecure about it now because I feel like too old or something.
What? Lamar.
But rappers are young. Like if you look at all the popular, if you Google the top popular rappers right now, they're all under 21. But it is changing though. Like the thing I'm actually,
and you could be the one that breaks out that is older, and that's just what happens.
yeah. Well, I realize I think a lot of older rappers realize this too, is that the hip hop, the genre of hip hop is not old enough to even know if it's possible because it's like my generation is
That's a good point.
because like it's not like rock music where rock has been around so long like Robert Plant is still doing albums, you know.
Yeah, like why can't rappers keep rapping into their 70s and 80s like rockers keep rocking into the same? Like it doesn't make any sense. Yeah,
and we just haven't tested it yet because all the rappers right now, like Nas, Jay-Z, and all those guys who were like, they're still going now because they're essentially, you know, the example of what it would look like, you know. So Nas has been coming out with albums now, and it makes sense because my generation, we grew up on Nas, but I'm too old to listen to these young ass rappers. I don't want to hear that shit. So I'm like, but I still like hip hop though, because I grew up listening to hip hop. So when Laz comes out with an album, I'm like, it actually resonates way better than like Lil Durk or something. No disrespect to the younger ones, but I like that.
How old are like Nas and Jay-Z at this point? In their 40s?
Yeah, like I think Jay-Z's almost 50 at this point. He might be 50.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, that's so interesting. I never thought of that. That's a cool thought to think about, like Jay-Z or not, like rapping in their 70s and 80s.
Yeah, like essentially, like, or Snoop Dogg is like an actual grandfather.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Snoop is old.
Yeah. Or even Kendrick, you know, Kendrick just came his album, and it's like, I feel like that album is so for my age group, you know. It's like, oh, especially, you know, it's like, this is actually music for us. Like, I don't feel too old to be listening to this, where if I'm listening to like Jack Harlow, I feel like old. Because I like his value system doesn't line up with mine.
Right. No, that makes sense. No, that totally makes sense. I've never thought about like ageism in rap.
It's very important. It's a very important issue we got to talk about. But I do feel like at the time when I first started, it was insecurity. But to be honest, in this moment right now, that's not something I'm insecure about anymore.
Right. But at a time, it was like feeling maybe not young enough.
Yeah. Or just feel like not cool enough. Or like even the comedic aspect. You know, I'm a big fan of Donald Glover. I've been kind of chasing him a little bit just in terms of his career. But like he's somebody who was the first example I've seen of someone who's as talented as a comedian as he is a musician. And I feel like that transition is difficult going from comedy to music because it's hard to take a comedian serious, you know, when they're rapping or talking about certain things. And my comedy brain, when I started rapping initially, my comedy brain kind of makes fun of rap music in my head because rap music has so much bravado and a lot of braggadociousness to it that is like hard to believe, you know. So I'm like, you know, I might be in the studio like, yeah, I just had sex with 30 women, and then my comedy brain's like, no, you didn't. You haven't had sex in 3 months, actually. You know what I mean? And it's like I had to figure out a way to like take myself serious as a rapper, and part of what that became was funny. Like what I do now, which is called lifestyle rap, which is not something I made up, but there's a group of us. There's people like Larry June and Currency and Wiz Khalifa, like people who rap about their lifestyle, which is just like smoking weed, drinking champagne, you know, eating out with my friends, things that I actually do on a regular basis. Right. And I don't have to feel like a fraud because I really do live that life, you know.
It kind of comes around to when you were rapping when you were younger, not feeling hard enough, right? Now you're like rapping, also not feeling like you fit the mold enough.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
That's interesting. And then you're a writer / producer on Grand Crew.
Yeah.
When did you start writing?
I started writing when I was probably a few years after I joined UCB. I started doing improv and I learned sketch there. I was doing sketches, and then I started writing pilots. I did this thing called the CBS Diversity Showcase, and I was a writer for that. And then I think off of that is when I wrote my first pilot, and which was about a kid who like grew up with a religious father. Now that I think about it, it's
great!
funny.
Write what you know, baby.
Yeah, and then I got my first job at this show called Survivor's Remorse, where it was like a show about basketball that LeBron James had produced. And that show I was glad that was my first show because it was very much about like being a young black kid in Atlanta. So I was like, this is easy. And then I went to New Girl after that. And then New Girl was like my comedy course and like writing course and like training. Like everybody there had been writing for years, and I kind of looked up to a lot of them there, and they sort of like showed me how to like really how to beat jokes, how to be a joke machine, and all that stuff. And I've just been working ever since, which is kind of crazy that I ended up working with Phil because Phil was like the person who helped me get my first job at Survivor's Remorse. So it's dope because he was a story editor. Then he left to go to Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and then I took his job at Survivor's Remorse, and then cut to 6 years later, I'm a producer on his show, which is kind of crazy.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't that beautiful?
I love that. I love that. It's beautiful, and it's such a testament to like. I feel like when people like aspiring actors or writers ask about, like how do I get work in Hollywood kind of thing, it's like it really is, about who in a sense, but not in the like disgusting, like icky Hollywood way, but more in the like make friends, make relationships, work with people who like who have the same drive as you, who have the same taste as you, who have the same, and then someone's gonna get a job, right? Someone's gonna help someone else get a job. You know what I mean? Like, and then it just keeps happening. I feel like that's kind of the way, and be like, don't be a shithead and work hard. Yeah,
I think that's very true. I think people sometimes have a hard time looking at their people within their community as the geniuses they are. Like, I think they're always thinking like, well, hopefully Shonda Rhimes will come get me a job. But it's like, it's not going to be her. It's going to be your friend that you've been hanging out with. It's probably the person you hang out with right now who's going to be the one that give you a job. And it's like, Phil, he was like when he got hired at Key and Peele like a couple years before I got my first job, but it wasn't like, we were essentially coming up at the same time. He was just in UCB, New York. And it's like, these are people who I spent a lot of time with. And one thing I used to do, or a friend of mine, Casey Faye, would say to do, he was an improv teacher, and he would say, go watch people on your improv team play on other teams and see and watch how good they are, and I think one of the things we don't do is like, I don't know if this is, if women have the same issue, but I know men have this issue where we have a hard time acknowledging how good and talented our friends are because it feels like we're in competition with each other. But I'm like, no, like all my friends, like my friend Curtis Joe is the best rapper I know. Like he's the best rapper. When my friend Carl Tart is the funniest performer in the city. Like I just believe that, and I don't have to feel weird about it because he's somebody I spend every day with. So that's how I feel.
I love that, and I 1000% I agree, and I do think it's changing. Like I think there was a time where people were very competitive, especially among I think people of color, Black people, because we felt like this is such a limited amount of work out there for us in the first place. So then it's like, oh, so I have to compete because there can only be one Black person on a show. There can only be one, Latino on a show. And so I do think that's shifting. And I do think it's like, when you win, I win. And we, when one of us is going up, we're all going up. Yeah. Exactly. And I truly believe that because you see it happening, and you see like more and more people of color kind of bringing up the people around them. Yeah. Yeah. And helping to lift them up in this business in particular. And that's a beautiful thing. And that's how we get the diversity and representation that we need.
Right. 1000%.
I am curious. You said you had all these blanks in mind. You were coming in with these blanks, but they weren't lining up to your life story. So tell me the blanks you were coming in with.
All right. The two blanks I had was one, not tall enough because I feel short all the time. And we talked about this a lot, Gracie. And I don't feel masculine enough. I feel very like, I don't know if feminine is the right word, but I feel like my masculinity is always in question. And I'm like,
does your height tie into that for you?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I played football in high school too, which we didn't talk about. So a lot of my friends were like twice the size, like 3 times the size of me. Like if you look at pictures, if I show you pictures of me in high school with my friends, I'm like the smallest kid in that group. I don't know if I'm like, classically short, but I don't know what short is, but I'm 5'7". But I always felt like,
I mean, I don't know what the average height for a man is, but I feel like it's not much tall. I feel like it's maybe 5'8". Yeah. Like I don't know what the average height for a man, and we can look it up, but I really feel like it's not that much taller than that.
Right. It seems like it. And then, so I think the masculine thing is just like something I'm personally dealing with in therapy right now. Like, So that's why maybe I came in with that, and I was going to try to control the podcast to talk about my issues with masculinity.
Well, no, but those are two really good ones, and we should talk about them. Like, how do you feel that affects you in day to day? Like, does it affect you at work or your personal relationships? Does it affect you with dating? Does it affect you with your friendships?
Oh, well, I'll tell you real quick, just to answer your question before we get into that. The writing thing I felt was not educated enough. Like, I feel like that's also something that's changing too, is how the background that people have in the writer's room is changing, because a lot of them are coming from different backgrounds because things are getting more diverse. But when I was coming up, I was like usually either one of two black people in the room. And most of the white people in the room went to like Ivy League schools, like high end, real like Yale or Harvard. And they just, I have bad grammar. I wasn't that academic. Like I wasn't like a scholastic person. So even though it really doesn't matter, like for any writer out there, I can promise you don't need to know how to spell or anything. I mean, you should learn how to spell, but I'm just saying there is somebody in there typing for you. So like, you know what I mean? Right. Like if you have good if you have good ideas, it doesn't really matter. But I always was intimidated by it because, especially being black too, I could tell that I just come from a different education system than my people I work with. And, there'd be times where I have to be on the board, on a whiteboard writing. And it's like, it was the most anxiety inducing thing for me, because it was like all these like educated white people staring at, me feeling like this young black kid trying to, write words and like really struggling to like spell certain words correctly. And it was like, it was soul crushing, honestly. But, luckily I'm a hilarious person, so it kept working.
But it's true though. Like I know, I get it. And it is true because rooms are diversifying, but they were very white, and there's like a lot of like the Harvard Lampoon kids, all working in these writers' rooms, and these are very smart, funny white people, and it's intimidating, and you're just like, oh shit. So and I went to NYU, which is a pretty good school, and I still would feel intimidated by people who like went to Ivy League schools or people,
Even the way they talk about comedy is even like intimidating, which is like, because you start getting questioning your own comedy taste, where you're like, that made me laugh, but then we're like breaking down jokes in a way that's just like so nuanced that you're like, I'm not even sure why this is funny anymore, but it's just like we had this intelligent debate on a joke, why this is so funny or not funny. And it's like, at the end of the day, I'll laugh at anything. Like I'm a laughing person, so I'll laugh at whatever. So yeah, I felt that. I don't feel that anymore. If anyone ever feels that way, hit me up. I'll hire you. Because I don't give a fuck. You can spell anything. If you got good ideas, let's do it. But with masculinity, I felt like I'm just a real sensitive person. I'm like really emotional, and I get sensitive. And I think sometimes this is also my own personal insecurity. I feel like, and I'm single right now, and I feel like I have a tendency to open up early. And I think like, I don't know if it freaks girls out or whatever, but I'd rather do that than like hold it in and like let people know later that I'm like a sensitive person. Like, and sometimes I'm just like, this is the kind of person I am. I like to, get really emotional and vulnerable really quick. Are you into that, or is that unattractive? Sometimes I feel like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like girls don't like it,
And also, LA is a funny place. And, like, I think dating in LA is hard. I never dated in LA until recently because I was married. So I'm learning too about how hard it is.
Yeah.
I feel like what you're doing though makes the most sense, right? And it's probably the best way to go about it, because that's who you are, and someone needs to know that, and they're either going to be into it or not. And if they're not, then they're not meant for you.
Right.
And then one day you'll find someone who is. I think it's really great that you can admit that and be open about that, because so many men are not, and so many men deal with that like toxic masculinity bullshit and feeling they have to be like a certain way to be a man, and it's just like,
right. And it's like, it's almost like that character exists. Like, it's like, I'm a rapper, so like if you watch one of my music videos, I know how to put it on, if I have to, but it's like, I don't know why I would do that on a date. Like, I'm not going to be that way all the time, but it's there for me. Like, I'm from Atlanta. Like, I know how to talk to women. I have a lot of confidence, but it's like at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to build a relationship with someone I can't be vulnerable with, because that's all I'm really looking for,
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see if it works out, but it's not working out right now.
It'll work out. And then with the height thing, this is something you feel like you've dealt with your whole life, or just more recently as an adult?
I think I've never really thought about it that much until recently, because like I just assumed that all my friends were like football players. And that's why I just was like, all my friends are
Right.
just big and they're huge. So I just never thought it was, I would just thought that's why. But then now I'm like, I don't know why I'm thinking about that more. Maybe because I'm on dating app.
probably.
Yeah, the dating
Yeah.
apps too make you think about it because you have to put your height on there.
Ugh, I know. Dating apps are the worst. And do you date taller women? Do you have an issue with a woman being taller than you?
Not at all. I don't have a problem with that at all. Nah. I feel like maybe some tall women don't like dating short guys, so I'll just try to date more short women, just so I don't get rejected by them.
I'm definitely guilty of it. We've had this conversation.
Do you think I'm that short? How short? I mean,
Well, I'm 5'8".
yeah.
Okay, so I'm 5'8", and like I tend to wear boots, right? So then now I'm probably like 5'9", 5'10" when I'm walking out in the world. And I've admitted this to the people I've had this conversation with. Like I admitted this to like my girlfriends and stuff. It is the one superficial thing about, like it is the one thing that I'm just like, no, I need a guy to be taller than me,
Right.
because there's something in my head that's like very non-feminist where I'm like, I want the guy I'm with to just be bigger than I am. And because I'm a certain height, then they need to be a certain height. And I've definitely tried dating guys. I mean, twice. Once when I was way younger, this guy in my 20s, I think he was like my height.
Yeah.
Or maybe a little shorter. And then recently I went on a date with this guy who was like my height, but I was wearing boots that day, so I was taller than him. And then I went on a second date, and I just felt like he just felt like smaller than me. And I didn't, there were other reasons. Like, I think I wouldn't not date someone just solely on their height. Like this guy had other things I wasn't into. So that made it easy.
He's like, he also hated all Mexicans.
There's like other things going on there. To me, it is like a personal preference. But my biggest pet peeve, and this is coming full circle, is I have friends, girlfriends, who are like 5'4", 5'3", blah, blah, and they're talking about, oh no, my guy has to be 6 feet. I'm like, wait, no. You're not allowed to want a guy who's 6 feet. Like that's not fair.
I think there is probably some like physical justification where you're talking about like even just sexually. Like I feel like I wouldn't want to date someone who's taller than me if like our bodies aren't sexually compatible. Like if it doesn't work out in that way. But like, but you won't know unless you try. Because I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like, I feel like if they're shorter, it seems to be a little bit more fun. I don't know. But anyway, we don't have to get into that. But you kind of know what I'm saying. Like, it's
I know what you mean though. But I also feel like, like to the women who are like short or average, to have I just feel like people want to give me shit about wanting a guy who's like, I'm like, okay, 5'10" minimum, 6 feet more ideal. And they're like, oh, that's so. I'm like, yeah, but that's only 2 inches taller than I am. Like, right. But yet there are girls who are 5'4" being like, he gotta be 6 feet tall. I'm like, that's not fair.
The problem with that, like, that's why I don't have any like physical like rules on my thing, because I feel like you're taking away like half the population basically.
Yes, especially which is why I hate dating apps, because before my husband, I realized like, oh, most of the guys I dated, I wasn't necessarily physically attracted to, but like something about their personalities clicked for me, because I really like someone like who piques my interest in a certain way, or who's interesting or funny or can make me laugh. And so like, even if they're not like this quote unquote ideal version of hotness to me, like I'm like, there might be something else that I find really attractive.
Right.
And you can't get that through an app. Like you're just looking at pictures and then these like stupid little things that they say or whatever that are all drive me crazy. And it's just like, I don't really. And then to have to go on a date with them before you even know how you feel about them is also kind of annoying.
I've been on apps where I've like had full like a 3-week conversation with someone on the app, and then I met them and I was like, I don't know this person at all.
You're like, wah wah. But that's what I mean. Versus like you can meet someone in person. For me, at least, it's like, oh, I instantly know if I'm like attracted to this person, if they're interesting to me, if I want to see them, if there's sparks. Right. And then you go on a date, and then the date is usually great because you already know there's something there.
Yeah. Right.
Versus this like texting and mess. I don't know. I'm very anti-apps right now.
Me too. Yeah. I like to meet people in person, but the apps, I guess they were helpful because of the pandemic, but I'm open to anything. I'm at a place where whatever works, just let me know, because I'll try it.
Well, to wrap up the show, let's name it.
Okay.
Which blank that we discussed, or maybe even a new blank, feels the most Lamar to you? I mean, we talked about in your childhood not feeling
Fun enough.
Yes, not feeling fun enough.
I definitely don't feel that anymore at all.
Yeah, and then there was like not feeling hard enough with the rap stuff, and then not feeling masculine enough, not feeling tall enough, not feeling educated enough. So does any of those feel like they can be the overall arching theme of the episode, or just overall arching theme of Lamar, or is there something else that you feel like?
That's a good question, because all of them, it makes you do. That's why I like how you did it. I like how you did that, because now I feel like it makes me realize how much I've changed, over the years. But I would say, like the educating thing, I don't give a shit about anymore. The tough enough thing is still there.
And that kind of ties into masculine too.
Yeah. Because I feel like one of my biggest fears is that, especially now that I'm rapping, and rap right now is really dangerous. Like, people are getting killed and like robbed a lot. And I'm like, one of my biggest fears is that someone's gonna just rob me. Like,
oh no.
And like there's this scene from Menace Society where this like the guy is like, he's like, man, I got this new car, but I just need some I just need some new rims on my car. And he's like, all I got to do is just find some like chump ass dude who's slipping, right? And he looks over and there's like this light skinned dude with a, like pretty hair, and he has this fly ass car. And I'm like, I feel like that's me. Like I'm like driving while music blasting, like in an Audi, just looking cool as shit. And I'm like, some dudes are like, I'm gonna take that ship from him.
Oh no.
I don't know. What do you think? I really
like Not Hard Enough only because it ties into the music and that hip hop world and lifestyle you're talking about. But then it also ties into like the masculinity portion, the like not feeling tall enough as far as dating and stuff. Like, it's just
because I would describe myself as I'm a soft person. Like, I'm soft as hell, right? So like
right.
So yeah, Not Hard Enough then. Let's do that.
Yeah, especially because you talked about your sensitivity and stuff, and it's like, and it's a good one. We haven't had that one before either.
Cool.
Lamar, thank you so much. This is wonderful. It's great having you on the show. Is there anything you want to plug before you go?
Just check out my music. It's on Spotify. You just type in Lamar Woods. You'll find my album Wine Bars, and listen to it. And it's about drinking wine and having a good time. And then also my movie, It's a Party, is on all platforms. You could just on Apple, Amazon. It has Carl Tart in it, has Phil Jackson in it. It's a movie that I made independently, and I'm very proud of it. So you should check it out if you haven't seen it.
And what about Gossip?
Oh, I do a podcast with my homie Carl Tart called Gossip Kings, and on HeadGum. You could, available wherever you get your podcasts, I guess. And we watch Gossip Girl and talk about it. It's very funny, and we have like we're on season 2 now, so you can catch up. But it's a very fun show. And also you can follow me on Instagram at Prophmatic, PROPH Matic.
Thank you, Lamar.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Not Blank Enough. You can learn more about our guest in the show notes. Please subscribe to Not Blank Enough wherever you get your podcast. And if you like what you hear, please consider leaving a rate and review. You can also follow us on Instagram at Not Blank Enough Pod. Our show today was executive produced by Gracie Mercedes and Dave Hill, and produced by Douglas Sarine and Colleen Beasley. Not Blank Enough is a Gumption Pictures production.